Welcome to Close Listening.
Welcome to Close Listening. I'm Zach Morgenstern, joined as always by silent co-host Ludwig von B. And today I'm here to talk about my experience listening to Bruce Springsteen's Letter to You. So I recently went to see Bruce Springsteen perform a concert, and I've had this tradition of, prior to going to concerts, getting out like as many albums as I can out of the library and trying to get to know an artist's discography really well. I feel like if I'm taking up a seat at a concert, especially one that's as hard to get into as Bruce Springsteen, I feel like I owe it to the experience to be as much of a fan as I can. I should know more than just the greatest hits. And in the past, that felt a bit excessive. A couple years ago, for example, I went to a Who concert and I was really disappointed, not only because they didn't play the sort of more obscure stuff from their later in their career that I studied up on, but also because they didn't play the classics from earlier in their career. They fixated on this like tiny point in their career with like Tommy Who's Next and Quadrophenia. So, I mean, no disrespect to those guys, but not how I would have structured a concert. Bruce Springsteen felt like the best of both worlds. Because, as far as I know, Bruce does not have any incredibly experimental music. Probably the most experimental is from The Wild, the Innocent, and the E Street Shuffle, which I talked about in my last video. So any song he plays from his catalog is going to be a lot of fun to listen to. That said, he does play music from throughout his catalog. And one of the shticks at his shows even seems to be that fans will bring signs requesting songs, and his band will come prepared to play those songs. And I don't know if there's ever been a song too obscure for them to even play, but it seems like he really knows and loves most, if not every song in his catalog. One of the pleasant surprises in the show was that he played quite a few tracks from his most recent album, Letter to You. I guess it's not his most recent album, but it's his most recent album of new material. So it shows he has the confidence in his new work, that it's important to him, that he thinks this can be just as much fun as the classics. This is not just me making an album for the sake of making an album. I love doing music and I'm putting out important work. It felt very validating to go to the concert and have that experience, and it made me listen to this album even more and appreciate it even more. So a recurring theme in Letter to You is songs just dealing with the loss of a person. Hard to say too much about them without, really knowing the relationships they're about, but it opens with a fairly stripped down mourning song called 1 Minute You're Here before moving into the explosive title track, Letter to You. So this song opens kind of as a scene from a survival movie. It goes, "'Neath a crowd of mongrel trees, I pulled the bothersome thread, got down on my knees, grabbed my pen, and bowed my head." So Letter to You, being released in 2020, ends up being Bruce Springsteen's COVID album. And in a time when so many experiences were reduced to being online, I think it's kind of cool that he chose to honor, the traditional image of letter writing on pen and paper. And one could also see that as a statement of intent about his music, about this project. Oftentimes it can feel like artists are relatively dismissive of the work they put out later in their careers. They think the fans only want to hear the old classics, and this song is a way of saying, I'm still writing with passion. I care just as much about Letter to You as I care about Born to Run. The next track on here is called Burnin' Train. So Bruce's delivery can sometimes be a bit mumbly, so before I looked up to the lyrics of this one, I actually heard it as Board of Trade. I understood it, I guess, as one of his like working class protest songs, let the workers be on the Board of Trade. But no, it's called Burnin' Train, and it's sort of like a fiery, religiously and sexually tinted love song. One thing that I noticed Bruce doing a lot on his Magic album is putting out the music side of the music in a way that doesn't always go with the lyrics. So musically, this one sounds almost Christmassy with its jingly sound, but it kind of has this dark, lightly Catholic fear of hell kind of thing going on. I'm on a downbound burning train. So just an interesting juxtaposition. We have another track on here called Janie Needs a Shooter. This is apparently quite an old song and one with like a shared history between Bruce Springsteen and Warren Zevon. It's performed very intensely, but it's just these very complex but ultimately crude sexual metaphors. It's an interesting oddity that kinds of blends in with the rest of the material. So I said there's a recurring theme of mourning songs on here. And so next we get to a song called The Last Man Standing. And I have some of these songs confused, but I think this is the one that Bruce performed mostly acoustically when I saw him live, though it's a full band song on this one. And he introduced it as being about the death of a friend and, noticing that all the members of his original pre-fame, pre-music career band had died. I feel like there's a certain ambivalence going on here. Bruce Springsteen is 75, which is, a lot of years, but a lot of people can get to that age and not come across as particularly old when you watch him in concert. Like maybe his voice is not 100% of what it used to be, but he's screaming these songs over a giant band. He's clearly a musically very athletic person, still, living a life of joy and fun. He's very much alive, and yet these other people he has these connections with have, died of old age or disease. So it's like existing, I guess, in this kind of dual mindset.
Where you both see yourself as just yourself with your hobbies and your passions and living life every day, but you also see yourself amongst the old people and amongst those who are facing death. You both are and aren't one with them. While writing this script, I thought about the ethics of even bringing up this topic. Do singers of a certain age want you always interpreting their lyrics as being about mortality? It must be unpleasant to just be told, oh, you're old. Everything you're saying must be about how you're dying. But since Bruce introduced this song specifically as being about his friend, George Stace, I figure it's okay, though uncomfortable to bring up.
Next, we get a song called The Power of Prayer. This is a very upbeat tune, and when I did a little research onto it, there's this great blog called Roll of the Dice that I've been relying on in making this video, and that guy truly knows his Bruce Springsteen. I'm more reacting off the cuff here. So his interpretation of the song, tied to a Bruce Springsteen interview, is that he's just using the phrase power of prayer, and it's just really about magical musical moments, which is revealed in the last verse when he talks about the song This Magic Moment, sung by Benny King. I decided to interpret it along religious lines just because the song is so confusing. What are these characters praying about? What are these characters crediting to divine intervention? And it actually made me think of the randomness of, athletes praying for success in a game because, presumably there are athletes praying on both sides. So how can they possibly think God is helping one of them and not the other? And I guess the answer you go to next is, well, God is a complex plan and everyone has their role. But the way I see that as an atheist is, well, if there's a complex plan and some people succeed in the complex plan and some people succeed, some people fail, then what difference does prayer and divine intervention make? Everything just feels kind of random in the end anyway. So I interpreted this song as being a joyful but cynical take on praying for a blissful experience, but that's not necessarily what it's about. Then we get to the song House of a Thousand Guitars. This was the real earworm for me. And I think the fact that it's slightly rhythmically imperfect, that Bruce has to struggle a bit to fit House of a Thousand Guitars into his musical lines, but it's close enough to rhythmically working that it just gets stuck in your head. And it's kind of a secular gospel song. So again, the Roll of the Dice blog talks about the importance of the image of building up a house in gospel music. And his interpretation of this one, which I think quite works, is Bruce would like to see his career in working in music as having lifted up people, have given people something they can turn to for strength in troubled times, such as in the Trump eras, as he hints at in his line, "The criminal clown has taken the throne." Next, we get a song called Rainmaker. So just as mourning is a continual theme on this album, so is religion. This one has a sort of thumping chorus that you can't miss, and it's basically about the fact that if people are having rotten luck, they'll pick to believe in something irrational rather than not believing in something at all. Next, we get another kind of experimental gospel song, If I Was the Priest, and it's similar to my interpretation of the power of prayer. No theology has the answer to all the evils in the world. You could choose to believe in Jesus. You could choose to believe Jesus is doing his best and bringing goodness to some people. But at the end of the day, he's just one of many heroes in a world full of outlaws. We then get a very catchy, upbeat song called Ghosts. So once again, that contrast between the meaning of the lyrics and the sound of the music. The emphatic chorus of I'm alive could almost make you miss what the rest of the song is about. But I guess that's the point. One can live in these two extremes where one has lived for a long time and still feels very much alive and is still very much enjoying life, even as one has all these memories trapped in the past. Next, we get a song for orphans. So apparently some of these songs, like Song for Orphans, Genie Needs a Shooter, are much older than this album actually is. So this one sounds like a Bob Dylan imitation, and Bruce Springsteen's very first album, Greetings from Asbury Park, New Jersey, lots of those songs sound like Bob Dylan imitations. This one sounds like a very direct Bob Dylan imitation in the way those ones aren't. It's kind of like a hard rain's gonna fall. It's talking very broadly about societal ills, about abandoned, figurative and literal orphans looking for salvation. Again, kind of a similar theme to Rainmaker. People will believe in all kinds of things. He keeps using the words Confederacy and Axis in here, and it's hard to tell, is he referring to the Southern Confederacy and to the fascist Axis in World War II as dangerous rainmakers people can turn to? The lyrics are a bit abstract for me to know for sure if that's what's going on, but it's a possibility. And then we get another morning song in I'll See You in My Dreams, and it offers an alternative to seeking out religious salvation or true miracles and saying, at least we have dreams. So overall, great experience, lots of interesting songs. You could listen to this a few times and then be excited to hear most of these performed in concert. It's a big sound, but it's quite distinct from the big sound of his classic era, I think partially because the lyrics are more confessional and less grand societal epics. So yes, A Letter to You is Bruce's latest album of original material, and I say it should rank among the classics. I'm Zach Morgenstern. This is Ludwig von B. See you next time.